at 6 o'clock that PM.
Good evening. All persons wishing to attend this virtual meeting may do so via YouTube, Sumter School District Board meetings, and Sumter School District's Facebook page. Due to COVID-19 and in compliance with recent public health orders, no members from the public will be able to attend the meeting in person. This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. We have present for this work session on Monday, November 28th, the Vice Chairman, Dr. Frank Baker, the Reverend Darrell McGaney, Mr. Brian Austin, Mrs. Cheryl Ray, Mr. Matthew McLeod, Dr. John B. Hilton Jr., Mr. Sean Reagan, and Dr. Barbara Jackson is present via Zoom, and we may be joined later by our show installation support person, Robin Mills. May we pause now for a meditative thought, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fellow board members, welcome. It's good to see each of you. Our agenda is before us, and if there are no objections, the agenda will stand approved. Please note that Ms. Mills has now joined us. The agenda stands approved. Thank you. Item 2.1 announcements. Are there any?
I'd like to request a point of personal privilege and see if this would be a place that we could open the discussion for our called meeting next week about whether we want to do the evaluation that day or postpone it.
The church, that's not on the agenda, that would have to be an item that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Because we're specifically talking about that next, whenever you're gonna talk about it, but we're gonna talk about it, and I'm not against that, but, as I stated before when we first came here, for the ones who've been here, you know, I'll be honest, I looked at the agenda, and it was, to me, it was kind of short, and I said, you know, this looks like it's gonna be a quick agenda, but if we wanna add something, then a topic like that, superintendent evaluation, is something that would have to be on the printed agenda if we're gonna talk about that, and the media needs to know that we're gonna talk about that, you know, ahead of time.
Just let me say though, if we have it scheduled for next week and we have everything in place, there's not going to be any time to discuss it if we want to postpone it. So when do we have a chance to talk about it again?
We won't have a chance to talk about it again. We did talk about it momentarily at our last meeting. It did come up.
Right, but we didn't really have any discussion. However, if we're gonna wait until the called meeting, then we can discuss it before we get started there, or would you rather discuss it tonight?
Well, the meeting of next week is called for that purpose.
Right.
So if we're gonna have a discussion, I think it'd be more timely to do it then.
And I guess my question is, the discussion is regarding, are we going to hold a special call meeting? I don't think the question is to have a discussion on the evaluation. I think the discussion is on whether or not we should have a special call meeting or not.
Okay.
Right.
She said, okay, I'm just ready to question. I was going back to question. I'm just trying to keep us out of trouble legally. But again, so this came up as chairman, if you don't mind. I mentioned something in February, and I keep saying it. I don't want the superintendent blindsided. And if we have something to say to her, I still feel we don't need to blindside her, and we shouldn't wait for the evaluation time to blindside her. If there's something that each board member want to talk to her about, or whatever, then we need to be honest, and we need to be straight up with her and talk to her about it well in advance before the evaluation.
Well, I think one of the things important for us to understand is that doing an evaluation is not optional with us. It's a part of the superintendent's contract.
Right.
Understood.
And so doing the evaluation is not like throwing a brick and hiding your hand. Obviously, we want to look at her work, look at the projections she made, see how she's progressed on them, and give her any support that we can in determining how she can better do what she's doing.
May I say
And
something?
if not, then you can say that, but I don't know that there's any kind of wolf or something in the room, an elephant in the room.
Right, and that's, I agree with you that any concerns we have come up as we are aware of them. But I was thinking we've just started our new hybrid instruction this week. She's gonna have to do preparation for the evaluation, and I just want to give her some more time to do that. Right now, we're in the midst of all the virtual learning and the new things, and like I said, we're going stages by stage, and, if we waited, that would give her some time to have more time to prepare and also not do it right in the middle of all that she's got going on right now. That was just my thought. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
The evaluation will be, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the evaluation will be based on, for the first year, last year.
Right.
Okay, and again, I keep referring back to February, because I said something in February when we asked if we want to do a midterm evaluation. And I said yes, because if not, we went to the last minute to blindside her. And now, here it is, September going into October, we're right up upon the evaluation. We cannot really blame the superintendent for really anything, because this board have not talked to the superintendent as a board between February and up to now to say that okay, you did good in this area, you did good in this area. That should have been addressed a long time ago, like July, June. You see what I'm saying? We read upon the evaluation. Can we really give her an evaluation?
Well, not only
Or we need to
that,
do away with it, or what? You see what I'm saying?
well, not only what you're saying, but, was she ever given the tool that she'll be evaluated on? Because I know I haven't. I don't remember seeing it. Maybe you gave it to us, or we were given it, not you personally. But maybe it was given to us, but I don't remember. Did you? I mean, that's like giving somebody a job to do if they don't have a job description.
She gave us her goals for
For
the
both,
year.
right.
Yeah.
But we
And,
don't have an
But
evaluation.
did we give her our expectation?
okay. Johnny?
Mr. Chairman, Matt, to answer your question,
Uh-huh.
I don't think there is an instrument. My recollection is that we came to consensus that we were gonna evaluate the superintendent based on the goals that she set for herself and our observation and evaluation of how she achieved those goals, how she met those goals.
Right.
So there is no instrument that you use like if the state provides instruments to evaluate teachers with. There is no instrument of that type. So when you
I
ask,
thought
do
Connie
we,
was coming in to bringing the instrument.
pardon me?
I thought Connie, our attorney, was coming, we were having an instrument to go by.
I don't think so. I think Connie's just coming to facilitate the discussion. Is my understanding. What's your understanding, Mr. Chairman?
There was an instrument she gave us as a tool to do that. So she came in and she gave us an instrument and said, hey, this is a way you could evaluate.
Did you get a copy of that?
What, the Connie's discussion? Yes. when I-
Of the instrument that we would be evaluating on?
But that was for the interim evaluation, that we had that instrument provided to us. Because if you look at policy CBI, evaluation of superintendent, it talks of the board will make the evaluation on the basis of the board's written statements concerning the abilities needed by and the responsibilities and duties discharged by the superintendent. The board will give the superintendent a written opinion of his or her abilities and performance in various areas. The document will be given to the superintendent and discussed with him or her in executive session. I know that during the interim evaluation, we did have some sort of tool that we used to guide our discussion and for us to conduct the evaluation during that time. Since then, I don't think anyone has been given an evaluation tool or anything to look at and see what we're going into this special call meeting to evaluate her on.
Would it be any different? I mean, your interim evaluation probably has the same objectives for the most part, I mean, that she gave you. So, I mean, it's just a question.
Well, I think it will be different because considering when we did the interim evaluation, we weren't dealing with COVID. I
It shouldn't,
think schooling has changed
COVID shouldn't have any,
drastically since the interim evaluation.
the instrument, it shouldn't be any different. I mean, it would, if it were different, it would not be fair.
I don't think the instrument should change, but I think the context in which we conduct the evaluation has changed. Considering that we're not looking at a normal school year anymore. Since March, schooling has looked differently. So how do you evaluate someone on a normal school year as opposed to evaluating someone on the context in which they've done their job in the era of COVID?
But regardless how it's done, it's still the overall
Right.
a goal to educate children. So it's overall the goal no matter how you do it, right?
Correct. I just think that needs to be a part of,
Well,
that's the
Well,
context
that
that we
would be
need to look at.
considered
that would be part of our
in our
discussion.
objective evaluation,
Yeah,
but certainly the circumstances of the time do not change the impact of an evaluation. And it does not change our contract with the superintendent.
if we're gonna have,
And according to the parliamentarian in the room, we're all out of order, and I'm gonna call us back to order. And we will proceed with the agenda. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other announcements? Committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, the Facilities Committee met September the 21st, and this time I'd like to call on Trustee Brian Austin, who is a member of the Facilities Committee, along with Trustee Mike Austin, to kind of give us just a summary of our meeting.
The Facilities Committee met on September 21st. and receive information on building and classroom sanitation and air quality and a review of the Crosswalk Park Early Childhood Center building. During the facilities meeting, we were presented with some information on the MERV ratings according to the filters that we use in our district, as well as filters that's used across the state and across the nation in our buildings. We also talked about different things that different school districts were doing to increase the air quality in the classrooms and throughout the school buildings. We talked about the use of bond funds for the bipolar ionization based on some recommendations from Dr. Hilton and some articles that he provided. I know since that discussion and since that that facilities meeting, there has been some additional information and research done. So I'm sure we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board or refer something back to the facilities committee when it comes to the best use of bond funds to improve the air quality. Mr. Chan also brought up during the discussion, the use of an air quality test to test our air quality in our buildings now, as well as looking at if we test the bipolar ionization mechanism at various schools with different capacities and different building sizes to see if it's a good fit for us before we invest the money in putting these on all of our HVAC units. Another part of the conversation was the move of Brewington, or now the Sumter Academy for Support and Intervention, to the Crosswalk Park Early Childhood Center. And the recommendation that we're bringing back to the board for consideration is to include Crosswalk Park in the name of the building that will house the Sumter Academy of Support and Intervention program. As a note, and in light of recent information received, the district will be applying for a variance of zoning with the city of Sumter regarding that use of that building.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Mr. McClellan, any?
No, sir, I believe he covered it all.
You did an excellent job. Thank you, sir.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Right. Any other committee reports?
Mr. Chairman, the Finance Committee met last Thursday. Sean was there and Cheryl joined us online. And we too heard a presentation from Mr. Chan and Mr. Myers, and we talked about filtration using different filters in our existing air conditioning systems. We talked about filtration using portable in-room air purifiers, and we talked about the bipolar ionization, which requires the installation of a device in the air conditioning units in each classroom or in each air conditioning unit. And it was a very informative discussion. We saw a presentation, we saw a video, and we received a handout about an ionization device. And the recommendation of the Finance Committee was that we came to consensus that our recommendation would be to conduct additional research regarding these various options, because there are some pluses and minuses to all of these options. And after the meeting, Dr. Martin Knox provided an article. It's a position paper from the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, which is a share, ASHRAE. And it was a very informative document. I hope you all had a chance to look at it. If you did not, I would encourage you to take a look at it. It talked about filtration, and it talked about this position paper was actually about dealing with COVID-19 and dealing with infectious disease, infectious particles in the air. So it was very timely. the interesting thing, and I'm expanding on the committee meeting, I hope that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed.
Thank you. The main topics talked about in this paper, position paper, was dilution, air patterns, pressurization, temperature and humidity distribution and control, filtration, and other strategies such as ultraviolet, germicidal irradiation, UVGI. And I found it interesting that it did not talk about bipolar, the bipolar ionization. Again, going back to the recommendation of the Finance Committee, is before we make a final decision about how to best protect our students and our staff by providing the cleanest and safest air we can, we need to do a little bit more research on this issue. But we need to move with dispatch with the research, but we don't need to move too quickly that we make a bad choice.
Mr. Chair, point of personal privilege.
All right. I'll start with Robin, please.
Is there, before jumping into this as a district in itself, have we, I think it would be prudent for the committee to look, and it would really be the facilities committee, not the finance committee, I would think, but to look at nationwide at what other schools are doing. Because this COVID and the impacts and everything are not completely understood from what we are gathering in the military. So to jump into a multi-million-dollar system, which may or may not solve the problem, is probably not a wise choice. But I would think there would be a statewide committee looking into this, at least for South Carolina. I don't know that, but have we pursued that?
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought that point up, because that was actually a part of the facilities committee presentation about reaching out to districts in the state as well as nationwide on what other districts are doing. And surprisingly or not, I mean, a lot of school districts aren't doing anything outside of the normal operation. But to Dr. Hilton's point, I received a lot of complaints from the community concerning the last finance committee meeting regarding whether it was a finance committee meeting or was it a facilities meeting. There was very little discussion about the fiscal impact on the district, but more so on what the district should be doing. And I think that's confusing to the public when you had a facilities meeting and then you turn around a couple of days later and you have a finance committee meeting that touches on the exact same information. But there was little information about the fiscal impact on the district outside of the presentation that was given by Ms. Miller during the facilities meeting earlier in the week. So I think that when we're having these committee meetings, please just keep in mind what is the nature of that committee. Because it's very confusing to the community, it's very confusing to members of the board as well. But yes, I do believe that outside of Sumter, we should be touching bases with other school districts. We should be looking nationwide. If other districts are not doing anything, it doesn't mean that Sumter should not be doing anything. But that should just be our barometer, if you would have it, about the direction in which we should be going when it comes to addressing the air quality in our schools. And I do love the recommendation that Mr. Chan brought before the facilities committee on testing our air quality now to see where we are, to see if there's maybe some recommendations of things that may not have as large fiscal impact on the district as well. But I do think that we should revisit this with the facilities.
Mr. Chairman, I was completely confused listening to Dr. Hilton, but Mr. Austin covered, and I understand that.
Okay. All right. Anything further, Mr. Chairman?
Well, the reason we discussed it in the finance committee is because I brought it up at our last board meeting and I wanted to follow up on it. And so, if I confused anybody, I apologize. But I felt like that it is gonna have a financial impact on the district as to which way we go. And we did talk about the finances of it, but I also think it's germane to, the finance committee to talk about directions that the district should go and how that's gonna impact our finances. So again, if I confused anybody, I apologize. I'll be glad to talk to people and explain what I think about it. Thank you.
Well, in my opinion, it's a subject that maybe will have a broken line relationship between facilities and finance, because you are talking about facilities on the one hand, and you're talking about how you're gonna pay for it on the other hand. So there, well, two committees could be looking at the same issue, and coming to some kind of agreement as to how to best resolve the issue. But it's not always cut and dry that this is a single issue for a single committee.
And if the facilities committee wants to talk about how much it's gonna cost to remodel the Crosswalk Childhood Center, y'all feel free to do so. You won't hurt my feelings.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, 2.3, legislative update. Dr. Jackson?
Thank you, Dr. Canty, and good evening to everyone. We do have quite a bit of legislative update today, so I'm just going to highlight the things that I feel is most important at this point. However, should any of you like a copy of it, I'll be happy to have it forwarded to you. The update was sent out on September 25th, and again today, with no changes to what was sent out on the 28th. On the 25th. The first big thing was that the House 5201 20-21 is the Appropriation Act. And in that, House and the Senate, it went before both, and the Speaker of the House now has the power to assign the bills to the Ways and Means Committee. And that part is highlighted in 4.8 of that legislation or bill or act. And then H3210, the CARES Act, it says there that the conference committee of the CARES Act has given the both the Senate and the House adopted that, so that and the vote was very close, that the CARES Act would give rights for the monies that were not spent initially to be reappropriated or authorized to be spent. And it did identify, say, 4 different areas. One would be for school education measures, safety measures, virtual South Carolina nurses, and supportive services. And in section 1.5 of that, it extends the limitation to give you, identify the amount of funds that are the levels that were approved. And that would fall under, that would be DHEC, MUSC, DEW, and non-relief funds. And the allocation as far as the amount of monies that are there, along with minority and small businesses fund and state and local governments. There are several other pending General Assembly things, and some of which were not finalized because it didn't get through both of the houses, so it would have to be started back over when they return. I think that one of the big things is Hampton School District 1 and Hampton 2 will become one school district. It will be known as the Hampton County School District. I think those were the high points at this time. However, like I said, should you desire a copy of this information, I'll be happy to have it forwarded to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jackson.
Mr. Chairman.
Question?
Now hearing the legislative update from Dr. Jackson and going back to the conversation with members of county council during the budget presentation, it was stated during that meeting that county council will revisit our millage request based on the outcome of the legislature. And considering that we have a continuing resolution, has there been any discussion amongst leadership of the board to go back to county council to revisit it, since now it is September? And we know that there will not be a new budget passed at least until January.
Not from the board, that would come from the superintendent, not from the board. So I don't know what the superintendent has any thoughts on that at all. Okay.
We talked about it briefly, but we did not discuss going back to county now, because again, that just kind of happened.
I just think that we as a board, I know you said it is something that administration will have to do, but we as a board are the ones that have to make the case on behalf of the district, with the help of the administration. So I would ask that we as a board support the administration or look into exploring that option, considering that we do now know that there will not be a budget passed for the state until at least January.
Right. Right. Thank you for your input.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
In view of everything that's in a flux, I guess, until January, is it possible that we could ask Dr. Martin Knox to have the administration, or staff, present to the board, particularly with the CARES Act, what our district got in terms of money, how it's going to be expended programmatically or supplies or whatever, and I believe the CARES Act also provided for a portion of that to be provided for the private schools and the charter schools. Is that
Just the private schools.
just private schools? And it's what, 12 areas that the money can be. And if you looked at the figures that Dr. Jackson has presented, we're talking about a large amount of money in South Carolina in various school districts. So I think it would be good if we knew what our district was getting, and I assume that Dr. Martin Knox had the staff form a committee or decide to go through it and just walk us through that process. I think it would be good information to have. And going back to the point that Mr. Austin made leading up to January, I certainly would support that dialogue, but I'm not really clear, would that be something the county council could do, since they have to pass that ordinance for the funding? And it always has to be done by June 30. So would they be able to go back and backtrack? Of course, that's not our bailiwick, but that's a question I have in my mind too.
Okay. Well, all of it can be discussed, and we can push forward as advocates for the school board and for the school district, and go as far as we can. So I do certainly support that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And Madam Superintendent, in response to that request, maybe for October, you could give us some report on the CARES Act?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. All right. The superintendent's report. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Chairman Canty, Vice Chairman Baker, members of the Sumter School District Board, and members of the community. This evening, the tour of Sumter report will be given by the members of the instructional team led by Dr. Jada McLeod. Dr. McLeod, would you now take the opportunity to introduce your team and the presentation as it involves instructional technology?
Yes, good evening, Chairman Canty, Vice Chairman Baker, Superintendent Martin Knox, and Board of Trustees. Tonight I have with me the instructional technology team led by Dr. David Laws, Director of Career Technology Education and Instructional Technology, along with the Instructional Technology Specialist, Ms. Melissa Epps, and Ms. Keisha Grant. At this time, I invite Dr. Laws to begin the presentation, updating our instructional technology plan.
Good evening, Chairman Canty, Vice Chairman Dr. Baker, and Superintendent Dr. Martindale, and school board members. Presenting with me is our two instructional technology specialists, Ms. Keisha Grant and Ms. Melissa Epps. This evening, the instructional technology department will be providing you with an update on how we are supporting teachers, how we have supported teachers prior to the start of school and after the school year started, and our plans for continuous instructional technology support. As we know, these are some unusual times, so we have had to be very flexible and very innovative in how we provide support to our teachers. Our instructional technology goals are aligned with two of the superintendent's goals. And here today we are going to share or review just two of the superintendent's goals and show our alignment to our instructional technology goal. Achievement goal number one, foster a learning environment in which every student has the greatest opportunity to achieve academic success to become college, career, or military ready. Technology and operation management, goal number three, manage school operations and resources to promote student academic success and well-being by ensuring appropriate allocation of material and educational facilities aligned with programmatic needs. Our instructional technology goals were derived from the superintendent's action steps. Based upon a review of the superintendent's goal and action step, we developed three goals that are aligned. Three sub-goals, if you want to consider them as sub-goals for the superintendent's goal. These goals will serve as our guide to meet the needs and concerns of teachers as we implement virtual, hybrid, and regular instructional technology throughout the school year. And they are, by the end of the e-readiness review process, the Sumter School District will implement the recommendations in order to become a state-recognized e-learning district. And by the end of the school year, all teachers, administrators will be provided the opportunity to participate in instructional technology professional development sessions focusing on Google Suite, GoGuardian, virtual and hybrid learning, and the Schoology learning management system. Technology and operation management at the end of the 2 years will be implemented as the learning management system. Now I will yield to Ms. Epps and Ms. Grant to provide more information on the support we have been providing teachers and administrators.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keisha Grant, one of the instructional technology specialists. Our support in professional development is primarily guided by principal requests. Teachers also have the opportunity to send us an email or reach out to us for one-on-one assistance. And in addition to that, what we offer is guided by Dr. Martin Knox and Dr. McLeod from the feedback that they receive from principals. Next to the next slide. These are just a few ways that we communicate with teachers and get the training available to them. The first being our newest option, which is a podcast. We just launched our first episode on Thursday. The teachers can access it through Anchorfm. If they choose other platforms such as Spotify, they can listen there. And what we do is we allow them to submit questions, topics, and we try to cover those in 10 minutes or less. So it's something very easy for them to get an answer to their needs. And we've gotten good feedback on that thus far. The instructional technology website is still under construction, so hopefully that will be completed soon. We post a Google Classroom. We have a Google Classroom for each one of the schools that we serve. So that's 13 each. They can, of course, call us directly on our extensions or emails. And then we record a number of videos. And we use Google Meet, Google Guardian, Screencastify, and Zoom as means to do that.
Yeah, if they're talking, we lost the audio.
I think Mrs. Smith, I can't hear, she's muted.
Now you can hear me.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. I'll start over. Good evening, I'm Melissa Epps, one of the instructional technology specialists for the school district. As you can see on the screen are a few examples of a few trainings that I have facilitated since the start of the school year. As stated earlier, training is requested by principals or teachers on an as-needed basis. And these trainings are in line to support the district in-service that was done at the beginning of the year when teachers did a little bit more detailed information. On September 7th, a Google training on Google Classroom Q&A session was conducted. Google Classroom manual on Wakelet for step-by-step instructions. Demo on facilitating with Google Meet to make sure teachers know how to navigate so that their students can be more productive on the Google Meet during classes. Video demonstrations as requested by teachers on how to create assignments using Google Slides, Google Docs, and Google Forms. We have GoGuardian with a monitoring system, district issue devices. We will share more about that in a moment on GoGuardian. We are excited to have access to Elify. Elify provides digital learning resources focused on skills needed for life skills and social emotional learning, health and wellness, financial capability, and career readiness. Elify is a tool that supports meaningful remote learning to students. Also, teachers have shared experiences where parents and students are having problems submitting assignments. So resources is available for parents and teachers also, for parents and students. For future reference, all resources are available on the district's Wakelet and on the professional development website. Now back to Ms. Casey Blunt. Okay, so Ms. Epps kind of highlighted the majority of the topics that we cover on a regular basis. Throughout the spring, during the shutdown and our transition into this COVID experience, we had the Alternative Pathways to Learning series where we each did a topic weekly and the teachers had access to. But our goal is to provide well-rounded support that includes new teachers and those that may be continuing to join our district, one-on-one assistance, parent workshops, demos and tutorials, instructional planning, and lastly, ongoing professional development. I'm sorry, GoGuardian. GoGuardian is a classroom management tool for Chromebooks. Teachers are accustomed to using GoGuardian because they were able to use the GoGuardian tool last school term and way before the COVID-19. Next slide. Screen views. GoGuardian allows teachers to see what is on the student screen. If they're on a district device, they can see active tabs the students are currently looking at, as well as any other open tabs in the browser. Next slide. Parents can be other websites, documents, games that may be open but not being used. Teachers have the ability to close tabs when students have branched off to websites during classroom time. Next slide. Also, a timeline of activities is available so teachers can see what site students have been on and how long they have been on the website. Garden has a new video conference screen sharing features. You have video only call mode, which allows teachers to call students with voice during a classroom session. There's a video call mode, which allows teachers to call students with video voice in a classroom session as an individual or as a group. The presentation mode allows teachers to share screens with individual students or the entire class. These new features of Go Garden as functionalities enhance e-learning by providing classroom management and collaboration tools for a complete virtual learning setting. Back to Ms. Grant. Moving forward, going in the second quarter, you can advance that slide for me, please. This as a means for us to have a diagnostic way to see what's happening and to identify weak points. We'll have a rotation schedule to visit schools and do non-evaluative observations because we are support, so we don't ever want teachers to feel like us coming into their classes is punitive. But you can see kind of the days of the week and how it's aligned with the number of schools that we have. But that's our way of kind of identifying more areas that teachers may need for training. Next slide. So in our plans for professional development, we plan to continue the things that we're already doing, face-to-face offerings as it allows, and we can social distance and all. With varying comfort levels, sometimes people prefer to be virtual with Google Meet. The Google Meet professional development options are recorded. And Dr. Laws, if you'll click on that new teacher support link, because we keep saying the term Wakelet, not sure that you know what that means. So Wakelet is a website that allows you to bookmark and kind of house tools. And so this is what they look like after a professional development opportunity has come from the district. So this is what we had after new teacher orientation, and as Dr. Law scrolls, you can see the topic. You see Dr. Martin Knox and her welcome. We had a principal roundtable where they kind of give advice for the new teachers and the common pitfalls they experienced during their first year. So everything that was given to them during orientation is housed here. So if they forgot or they need to reference it, they can always go back. We have an upcoming PD on October the 7th. The same will happen with those resources. That's how they'll be housed. Thank you. We can move to the next slide. Going forward, and as we move into our phases with the students coming back, the number one thing that teachers have been asking for is how to handle the hybrid model, how to handle the face-to-face and students that may still be at home online. So the image on the left is an image I created, and the image on the right is one that already existed, but they both build on the station concept, which is a blended learning strategy. And so all that means is that the students are working on different activities in those stations. Next slide, please. All right, so here, the one that I created, of course, we start off with our whole class being together, which means that all students, those in front of them and at home, will be on Google Meet. But what that does is allow the teachers to lay the foundation for the lesson. There'll be, she'll use her hook or introductory activities with everyone. And then the students will break into groups. So we'll have 20-minute rotation where she's working with those students online, and then she'll switch and work with those in class. So that means that both groups of students have a period of asynchronous or a self-kind of guided portion of the lesson and activity, and they'll both get time with the teacher. And at the end, she'll pull them all back together, she'll pull them all back together for a closure of the lesson. We try to provide models that are flexible. So here we just have 2 blocks of time of 20 minutes, but that could be shorter. That could be 4 10-minute blocks of time. And it's outlined for 50 minutes, but it could be extended for a 90-minute block. Let's take a look at that next model. And the only difference between the 2 images is the number of stations. So this one added a 3rd station rotation for the students to go through and have lessons. And so again, this is designed for 50 minutes, but it could be lengthened or repeated. So if the teacher wanted to break the standard up into pieces and do one part first, and then the second, maybe a formative assessment in between, and then the second portion, that's an option. And then the next slide, let's take a look at what some teachers are kind of already doing. Go back one. Hey. Refreshing. There you go. Okay, so kind of what's already happening. The image on the left, for elementary teachers, because elementary is kind of already built around centers, like they start that with kindergarten, so they already have a pretty good foundation with using stations, but this is an example. So there's 4 separate places for the students to work, but all the students won't be in the same place at the same time. So all the students won't be doing word work while everybody's doing listen, read, and respond. So they'll be in different groups. And in the bottom right, there's a secondary classroom. This is Simmons at Hilton. She uses Pear Deck, which allows for an asynchronous option where the students work through self-paced while she works with another group of kids. So there's lots of flexibility with the model, but it doesn't force or pressure the teacher to try to do the same thing with everyone at the same time. And it's lots of different ways to do it. They have a lot of choice in the matter with it. And I think most will enjoy that flexibility. Coming up for the October PD, we've been able to secure a speaker from Colorado. She has been at a virtual school, meaning she's been teaching in that model for the past 5 years. That school that she works at was created to be virtual. So we're very excited about that opportunity and the wealth of knowledge that she'll have to add on to this. Going back to Lisa.
Bringing it all together. Supporting teachers with using technology allows teachers to bring all these facets together to produce a more effective virtual classroom setting and support and promote success for all students and teachers. So we use all these tools to bring it all together. Dr. Law. You, Dr. Law.
He's muted. Dr. Law, okay.
As you can see, we are providing support for our teachers in several ways. And we have to monitor and adjust in order to address some possible unforeseen issues. We continue to listen to our teachers and to our administrators and to provide support that they request. So moving forward, we will continue to provide continuous professional development, modeling, support for our teachers so that they are able to effectively integrate technology regardless of the format in which we'll be operating face-to-face, hybrid, or virtual. And we will begin to facilitate in the near future the professional development for our new learning management system. That concludes our presentation, and we're available to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. Questions? Yes.
Yes, did I understand correctly that different schools are using different technologies? So say a parent had 3 kids at 3 different schools. Would there be possibly three different technologies for virtual learning?
Most of the technology the students are using at all of the schools are the same, but there are some unique software that the teacher may use, but there are programs that we support at all of the schools, and then there are some apps, I should say, there are some apps that a teacher may use that they're more comfortable with, or that will enhance what he or she may be doing. But across the board, all of the general applications are the same.
And then the second part of that question is, I heard a lot of support for the teachers, which is definitely needed, but what about the support and feedback from the parents who are helping the kids at home? Have we set up a form where parents can have a dialogue with the teacher? And if so, what is that?
Ms. Brand, I think you were working with a group at Hillcrest. You want to talk about that?
The parent university opportunities are requested through the principals. And all of this is just an evening session. So the one I have at Hillcrest upcoming this week is actually tomorrow. They're hosted in the evening, you know, when the bulk of the population is off, they are recorded. And it's just the topics that they've had questions about. So like tomorrow, I already have a list of questions and I've already prepared the answers. And of course, they may have questions while we're live. But those are requested via the principals for their schools.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure we have teachers at all different levels of proficiency with using technology and teaching with this hybrid method. How are you made aware of teachers who are having problems, and then what specific support do you give them?
Keisha, Melissa, you may respond from your experience.
I had to remember to unmute. I was about to start talking. But for me and the teachers that I normally work with, been whether it's going into year 6, and we pretty much have a relationship thus far. And they just send out an email, and it's really the response is just based on their comfort level. If they want me to come out and they feel okay, social distancing and me being in their room, then I do that. If they prefer it being Google Meet, then we do that. Or if they prefer just a demonstration. So if it's something where they just want a question answered, we record it. But I think I probably have somewhere around, 20 to 30 emails almost every day since this has started. So it's just their preference about the response. But I've not had an issue with teachers reaching out when they had issues that they needed resolved.
And it's been the same way on my end, it's at the request of the teacher, and of course there's teachers I already have that one relationship with, and he reaches out more frequently. But they both work there, sometimes just one question, and I found it easier to just do a quick step-by-step demo video and share out with the teachers. And most of the time other teachers have the same question. So that's a piece that's already built, and we share out with other teachers as needed.
And may I also add to that as well, in terms of assessing where teachers are, your point is very valid in terms of teachers being at different places. Last Wednesday, I had the opportunity to invite our new teachers, new to the district and new to teaching, to have a virtual session with me. And they were very open and shared with me what their needs were. So what I've had since meeting with them is a discussion with the team to see how we can make a more global approach on a differentiated level to meet everybody, to your point, where they are. And I was just very pleased with the feedback that I got from the teachers. I couldn't ask the question, is this what you anticipated as an educator? Because none of us anticipated where we are. But they were very open to say, my challenges are with the technology. I'm not comfortable. And then they followed up with correspondence. We provided them with a couple of readings and a video for them to watch, a video for encouraging them. And so they were very open. Another piece that would happen is if a principal is dropping into the classrooms, because there's another piece to us utilizing GoGuardian and Google Meets. Principals can still walk through classrooms, not technically physically walking through classrooms, but principals can go into the classroom, as we can if we had the code, to go into the classroom just to do an observation. And if the principals on a normal basis would go into a classroom and see a teacher needs additional support, or the teacher would communicate with the principal if he or she needed additional support, we are readily available to provide that additional opportunity for those teachers and principals to learn, or assistant principals to learn. I think Ms. Grant mentioned next week or the week after we have a district-wide PD where we're going to continue the conversation about hybrid learning with having an expert, shall I say, come in and just share with us. And those presentations will be recorded and accessible for teachers for them to learn at their own pace, for principals to learn at their own pace. But again, I think Melissa and Keisha both said it. It's about listening, and it's about listening and taking the information and building on what our teachers need or our administrators need to provide them with a solid foundation. One of the things that I said and continue to say, we're all in the same space. We're ground zero, beginning to build up, because none of us have traveled this road before. So it's just really about listening and accessing resources and supporting one another. And again, building a process where we can all be successful, because ultimately at the end of the day, the success of the adults in the classroom impacts the success of our children at the other end of the spectrum. So.
One question, thank you. Thank you, ladies, and thank you. Laws has done a great job on that. But I'd like to ask one question. We've talked more about the teachers and the principal. The students, let's just say, how are the students, when they have issues that occur, how comfortable are the teachers without you there? Because I know that some things sometimes come up that they have not feel as if they've been prepared for. How are they handling those instances where students are having challenges on their end and they don't know how to resolve them at that given time?
I will chime in, and then the ladies can also chime in with their experiences. Having been in the school, supporting some principals and receiving some actual parents coming to the schools because their child has some concerns. The media specialist is also available, but there has been someone at the schools that I have supported at the front office to provide some assistance to that child and the parent when they were having some issue with how to log on or how to access certain features. And also at the school, when the instructional specialists are not there, they have a media specialist or a residential person to provide some support. But also the parents will call the school or email the teacher if they have some concerns. I'm not saying that all of those are perfect, but we work through them and try to provide the support.
Dr. Laws, is that true in all schools that you have someone there to address those things, or, is it some schools?
It's supposed to be all schools, the media specialists, I say media specialists because most of them are the media specialists, and or a person who is tech savvy. Should have someone there, but then that person may be a teacher. So there's also the availability of that teacher. Now, and it kind of covers too, it could be IT where it's a technical issue, or it could be an instructional issue, how to use a particular software or program. So the teachers and the instructional specialists have done a great job of having some of those things recorded. So what we try to do, if we have a major issue, we collect that data and it's made known to us, is to do a training where we can have the video. So if one person have a question, it means probably 5 or 6 other people have a question. So we want to keep those in that reservoir, the wakelet of training, so that we can address those parental needs. Not saying that we covered all of them, but that's what we strive to do.
And one final question, you mentioned the Chromebooks. Do all of our students have access to a Chromebook, and at what levels, if not?
That will fall under IT, and I'm assuming that they all have access to Chromebook, because I think that was our goal initially. But I would refer that to Mr. Jones.
Yes, that is correct. All students, K through 12, have access to a device. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Now, may I add something? We have devices for all students. However, all students aren't using the school district issued devices. And what we try to encourage is that our children retrieve a device, because what it happens is with the materials or the tools that we talked about a moment ago with like Go Guardian, if the teacher is trying to look to see what activity is taking place on that student's device, he or she is unable to do so if a student is using their own device or their own desktop. So we encourage our children to come and retrieve a device if they do not have one, but one is available to every student, and we encourage them to use the district-issued devices.
Questions?
Yes. How are we measuring the success of the virtual and hybrid learning? Are we, say for instance, a teacher sees that only 10 out of the 20 students are engaged. What is our process to try to engage those folks that are not signing in?
Could you all hear the question?
Yes, yes, sir. Dr. McLeod, you want me to respond, or?
Sorry, I couldn't hear it.
The question is, what are we doing if a teacher reports that our students are not signing in or participating in virtual learning?
Yes, that goes back to part of our attendance procedures during this time with the teachers. They've been outlined, and the teacher is making contact. If the teacher is struggling with that contact, then it goes to the attendance clerk to assist with contact also, and then into administration, because what we need to do is find out what barriers are if the student is having trouble being engaged.
But how are we doing? I mean, out of all of the students, do we have a percentage? Are we 80% effective?
We have a dashboard, but to your point, the data, we haven't been in progress long enough for us to assess, and this would be a benchmark at the end of that first quarter. What we did do in the spring that varied from now is when we did a survey, we asked the feedback from our community. What is it that we could improve upon? What are the challenges? What are some of the barriers? And we use that to help guide the work of our school reopening task force. But to your point, we haven't gotten to that place, and we do have a dashboard where we can look and do a comparison of the number of students who are online, who had access, what websites they were on. We're able to look at that data on a daily basis, but in terms of establishing a baseline of where we are versus where we need to go, we have not done that yet. And we'll probably look at that in RB.
Yes, we looked at these numbers constantly, and in this dashboard, like you mentioned, there's a constant percentage. So you can see that from 16,000 students at any point in time during instruction, they're 80% online. But when you see 80%, you could be between two breaks somewhere and another, because not everywhere the students have class.
Yeah.
So it could be that elementary has a 10-minute break and they're changing, and that's why. So you can't tell for sure that it's minimum 80. It could be higher.
Yeah. It almost probably has to be classroom by classroom.
Right.
Okay. And that, Chairman Kennedy, that was part of my question, was the accountability piece with what are we doing with these kids who are not signing on? And the second part of my question was, are all teachers now using that video camera so they can see the kids. And I may not be expressing that technically correctly.
So it's a camera that's built in on the Dells, on the devices. So some may have, not many, may have a swivel or may have, we don't encourage them to bring in additional technology. There are some schools that are doing it on a school-wide basis with having a standalone DocuCam or a swivel, but all of the devices have a camera on it. And so different again from the spring till now, is it must be face-to-face virtually. And so the uploading of documents, the students with their icons, of course, we still make adjustments. When I spoke with, I met with some principals the other day and they were saying that they have come up with some creative ways for kids who are constantly not online. And they're looking to determine why that child doesn't want to show his or her face. And sometimes it's where they are, they don't want kids to see. So knowing your kids and knowing what their lived experiences are, they work through those things. But in terms of accountability and students being present, it's just as if a kid were not present in school. They would be marked absent, and hopefully the attendance clerk, based on what we've expected, would make, or the teacher first would touch bases, and then the attendance clerk. And then again, we have Ms. Mixon, who will then reach out to the families to determine why a child is consistently absent, because that's what they are. They're absent if they're not logging on. And so a little different from in the spring when we had the nation in crisis, there were some parameters by which we allowed passes, shall I say. Right now, we are holding to the fact that kids need to be in school virtually, or when we begin to go back face-to-face physically, just to make sure they're in compliance with compulsory attendance laws. But to Mr. Jonas's point, we have the dashboard, and based on what I shared a few moments ago, we've not looked at an established baseline to say elementary should be at this percentage, middle school should be at, because it's almost level by level, school by school, class by class. And so we've not determined what a rational percentage should be of student engagement. While we want 100% students engaged, we know we have to differentiate our approach for each one of our students. So, you know, when Ms. Grant, I think, spoke about putting students in rooms, that's really small group instruction, where I'm able to work with different kids and determine what levels they're at based on the assessment of formative data, or whatever the data is that I've collected. I can then target engagement that way by giving smaller groups more close and up close and personal attention. But I hope that answers both questions.
And one other thing, Dr. Martin Knox, okay, if we have a child, as we would do in a face-to-face setting, they have missed a certain number of days, we carry them to court by law. Are we doing that based on the absences that are logged in virtually?
So we will, eventually it would get to that place, but one of the purposes of the revamping, shall I say, of the attendance role that Ms. Mixon is now filling is before we take a parent to court, which is punitive, finding out what the concerns may be to support them before it gets to that space. And to provide those wraparound services as a collective with social worker, whomever it may be, to provide support to that family. Because what we don't want to do is penalize someone for something that's out of their control. Maybe it's a student who's homeless. Maybe it's a student who's living somewhere with someone in another jurisdiction and they don't have access to Wi-Fi. All those components play a part in whether a child is engaging online or not. And so we need to find out the why before we move forward with taking them to court.
And do we have enough staff to do that? We've only got 3 social workers, maybe? And
so with the CARES piece, where are we now, Ms. Davis, with the number? Because I know you've made some offers. Where are we now?
We currently officially have 4 social workers, and I just made a recommendation on Friday for a 5th social worker, and that 5th one is the social worker that we have encumbered through CARES Fund. So Sumter School District officially has 4 positions, and then we have encumbered a 5th.
And so it is a collective approach when children are absent. So the teacher will make contact. If the teacher is unsuccessful, then the attendance clerk, and then the attendance clerk will make that referral to Ms. Mixon, and then we will follow through the process. And hopefully we won't get to that space, but I know we will, because all of the experiences of our children are different. But we're definitely trying to ramp up the supports we're able to provide, which is why we're utilizing CARES funds for the physical support through the use of social workers.
Okay, all right,
Go ahead.
You know, you go ahead.
go ahead, Cheryl, I'll get him next.
Okay, this is probably from Mr. Jonas. I'm still hearing that Go Guardian goes down, Wi-Fi goes down, which I know that's what happens with technology. But do you have any idea how widespread the problem is? Is that just isolated in certain schools, or do we have days where it's a big problem, or, you know, and how are y'all handling that?
Great question. So we had several issues and we investigated to find out what's happening. So, and we found out that the software Go Guardian caused some disconnections in one instance. And then as further we went in research, we found out that it wasn't only one problem. It was a collection of different problems. We found that one of our older laptops has an operating system that when an update applies to it, it crashes some of the cameras. So we now know the fix. Go Guardian saying that they resolved their problem because they scaled their services to a level that it won't crash anymore. And lately we did not hear issues about Go Guardian. We know that we have a set of laptops that have this issue with the operating system, and we already notified all the teachers to come and pick up a new one. Luckily, the order that we had to replace exactly these laptops as a renewal scheduled program are in late 3 months, but they're in. So we're ready to swap all of these out as soon as possible.
All right,
Yes, sir, I have a comment and then a question. So, to follow up on Ms. Wright's question, by and large, I've been hearing from teachers and parents and students that things have been getting better, that the virtual instruction has been improving over time, and that the glitches are getting worked out, and that things are going much better now. And you know, somebody told me today that we've got this now. We've got it figured out now, and things are going really good. It's not perfect, but it's gotten steadily better. And it's been a real team effort, I think, on the part of the IT department, the teachers and the administrators in the school, and the parents and the kids at home. So my comment is, thank you, and let's keep working at it. And then now we're about to phase into this hybrid, which will be a whole another ball game. And no doubt there'll be some issues when that starts, but hopefully we can work as a team and work through all that and get that under control, just as we have, for the most part, improved significantly the virtual instruction. So keep up the good work. My question is regarding this presentation that we saw tonight. My question is, for future presentations to the board, would it be possible for the information to be loaded into board docs ahead of time? Because I had some different, and it's true, I'm at the end of the room, but I saw Reverend Canny leaning forward in his chair. So
my eyes are bad.
mine too.
Yeah,
So my question is, for future presentations to the board, can we get this information loaded into board docs ahead of time so that we can see it on our laptops and so that we can see it a day or two ahead, so we can look at it and be in a better position to absorb it and appreciate it and understand it?
Yes,
So that would be my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, anybody else? I have one or two questions, Dr. Law, on the instructional side. In your opinion, what has been the greatest challenge that the crisis has presented, COVID has presented on the instructional side of what we do?
I think the greatest challenge is to address the anxiety for not only returning teachers, but also first-year teachers, and provide that support to so many teachers with fidelity. We were able to do it by team effort, but I think you want to have quality of instruction, and you want to provide the support. And so we had to do a great adjustment with not doing that in person. So when you go virtual, it's not just impacting how students learn, but also impact how adult learn. So we have to adjust to how we're going to provide professional development to teachers, and to do that with fidelity and support, and to listen and to exercise the ear more than the mouth, and listen to what their needs are, and to provide that with differentiation. But also the fact that we're just working with 2 instructional specialists for 26 schools has been a challenge.
Okay, all right, thank you. One or two more questions. From inception of our digital program to now, what's your impression? How do you evaluate what we have done over the last five years or so since we got started with instructional technology?
I can say to you, Dr. Reverend Candy, that you should be commended that this vision have come to this stage, because when I met with the state a couple of weeks ago, and they wanted me to brief them on our e-readiness plan, they were very impressed that what we have done from 5 years ago, that putting the devices in students' hands, having the starting with Google as the learning management system, doing all the professional developments we have done over the years, up to this current year, and adjusting, even the pandemic taught us some deficiencies that we had to grow from. That when I presented what we were doing, they were amazed that we had achieved so much without being an e-learning district, I should say. We're in e-readiness now, but an e-learning district, that they were so impressed that they should have no problems becoming an e-learning district. And this started over 5 years ago. So, and we know that it was the vision of the board and the superintendent at that time to make this happen. So this is the result. We were a lot further ahead, and hearing the complaints and the challenges, even though we had our own, but other districts have experience in larger districts than we are. And we didn't have any of those kind of problems that those districts were experiencing. So it was a great effort from IT, instructional technology, and administrative, including the principals. Everyone had their part in it. And working also with the academic coordinators a lot. What we hadn't talked about yet is that our academic coordinators work along with the instructional specialists. So there was a lot of moving pieces, but we got to a great place, but we're not done yet. So overall, I think we are a B plus, and we want to strive to get to an A.
All right. Now can I ask you one more question? And,
yes, sir.
And that is, in vision, where do you see us going? Where do you see us 5 years from now, or maybe even 10 years from now, but most definitely 5 years from now with instructional technology?
Well, one of the things Dr. Martin Nelson and I talked about very early in our introduction to one another was about the e-readiness and e-learning. And with our new learning management system, where I see us in 5 years is that we will not have a disruption in learning because of weather games. That our students will be able to continuously, seamlessly learn with weather changing, with any of these disruptions. Come January, after we pass the e-readiness review, we will not lose instructional time. And by not losing instructional time, that will directly impact student learning. That teachers will become comfortable teaching virtually and hybridly, and and that it will be a dividend that will pay off in our classroom instruction and our students' performance. So, and also the piece that we did an extensive review for our learning management system. We didn't just choose one, we did a very extensive review. And one of the key components of it is that it also allowed parents to have ongoing communication with teachers and to see their students' performance in real time. They'll be able to see through the parent app. Everything is born technology. So when you have a learning management system, they have a parent app that they can use from their cell phone. We know they all have cell phones, but they have a computer at home now, they have a cell phone. They can use that app to stay in tune, communicate with district, with the teachers and the principal, and be in tune with what's going on with learning and with their students. So I see the transformation of this, that we have been baptized by fire, continue to rise into great things in the fact that parents are comfortable with student learning, with technology, and the fact that we will not lose any valuable instructional time. And the days that we do have for professional development, Dr. McLeod and the team will be able to provide that support for professional development for teachers, and we can also do professional development virtually. So it has been a difficult, any time you go through a struggle, you come out smarter, come out more skilled, and I think that's what we have done over the past 5 years.
Okay. Dr. McLeod, you want to add anything to that vision for the future as it relates to academics and digital learning?
I agree wholeheartedly. I believe that they'll allow us to seamlessly handle whatever comes before us and continue to provide additional supports for students, whether that's different types of tutoring, as well as our staff that educates. And I would like to say that our professional development this year is also including our paraprofessionals, whether they are classroom paraprofessionals or they are in other support positions. They're included. For example, our October 7th, Ms. Galloway is doing some training on customer service. Ms. Miller is doing some training on some financial things, and it's all live training that's recorded. And I know that the Office of Academics, as well as the other departments that are working with us, would be thrilled if you have the opportunity to jump into one of the sessions. All of the information goes out to all email users, and I'll ask Ms. Hanson to also make sure that you have that available to you. You just need to have a Sumter Schools account, which each of you do, and I know that they would love to see you if you have the opportunity, as well as the teachers and the other educators that are participating in the sessions.
Great. All right.
I just want to say, I thank the board for your support as we navigate through these uncharted waters. I think Dr. Hilton said it best. While we began with large concerns, anytime there's change, there are concerns that come. And so by sharing the information with us so that we can listen to it, absorb, and make adjustments as necessary so that we minimize the disruptions and we minimize the challenges that exist, we'll continue to be stronger than ever. And I think Dr. Law said, when you are baptized by fire, you either burn up or you come out of the fire, just continuing to persevere and move forward. So I want to thank the board for your support and thank the team for their continuous efforts in making sure we're meeting the needs of our schools.
Madam Superintendent, and each of you, thank you so very much for the report tonight. I think you've helped us quite a bit, okay? Thank you. Anything else from you?
No, sir.
That's it. Okay. Item 4, finance report. Ms. Miller?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Dr. Baker, Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox, and board members. Tonight, we're going to talk about the general fund statement of revenue and expenditures as of June 30th, 2020 and August 31st, 2020. So first, we'll talk about the June 30th figures. You have that information in front of you, and the revenue changed from the prior presentation by approximately $506,000. Revenue code 1210 taxes changed by approximately $458,000, while revenue code 12 is in lieu of taxes decreased by approximately $52,000. That resulted in a net change of approximately $406,000 in the local taxes. Additionally, revenue code 3840, manufacturing reimbursement revenue, increased approximately $108,000. Please note that the year-end adjustments for tax receivables still needs to be recorded, so the revenue will change once again, and I should have that final figure next month. Moving on to the expenditures. The expenditures decreased by approximately $609,000. As we continue to close out the balance sheet accounts, adjustments have been recorded. Those adjustments had an impact on expenditure code 140, terminal leave, which decreased by approximately $49,000, and code 230, social security, decreased by approximately $580,000. Additionally, we had an additional transaction posted to code 720, payments to other governmental units, in the amount of $19,000 that occurred prior to June 30th, but was not billed until August. These changes that we just discussed results in a new projected change in fund balance of approximately $8.3 million. Are there any questions? Okay, the projected change in fund balance is good news, as there have been some discussions about mid-year budget cuts that could range between 3% and 7%, which equates to approximately $2.9 million to $6.7 million for the Sumter School District. If there's no questions, I'll move on to the August 31st figures. The August 31st figures I've updated for the August transaction. The only change in the projected revenue relates to some contributions and donations. I increased that projection to the actual amount that was received in August. And again, just a reminder that we are operating on the prior year's budget, and so we will continue to monitor that, make adjustments as legislation progresses. Are there any questions? Okay, moving on to capital projects. You should have the...
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I just wanted to follow up on what Dr. Baker was asking about the CARES money. And I'm looking forward, his request was excellent, and I'm looking forward to that. But I was recalling from a previous board meeting, I think, Ms. Miller, I think you said we had about $5.3 million that we had received from the CARES Act. Is that correct?
It's approximately $5.5 million.
$5.5 million, okay. Now, we are spending some of that money currently as we're moving along.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And also, Dr. Baker alluded to the fact that some of this money may have to be shared with other educational entities. Have we shared any of that money?
Currently, those funds have not been encumbered yet, but there is approximately $348,000 that would be allocated to the private schools as it currently stands.
Well, isn't there some sort of a disagreement about that? Is there some litigation questioning that?
Yes, sir. There has been discussion on whether that should be allocated based on the Title I allocation.
Okay. All right, thank you, and I look forward to receiving a more detailed report that, Dr. Baker requested earlier. Thank you so much.
All right, any other questions? Moving on to the capital projects, you should have the various 500 detail in front of you for August 31st, 2020. I'm not going to go into any detail on those, but I will take any questions you may have, and please note that you should also have the same detail broken out by location.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
This was discussed at the finance meeting, but I just wanted to ask this question again, so that we understand, in light of our discussions about air quality, that the board does have the authority to, and the administration has the authority to reallocate some of this capital projects money, so that if we saw the need to invest in other devices or other filtration or other things, then we have the authority to do that. Is that not correct, Ms. Miller?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no more questions, we can move on to the minority business update, and there's a presentation that goes along with that.
Ms. Miller, are you sharing your screen?
Oh, absolutely, I can do that. This. I apologize. Okay, here we go. Okay, can everybody see the presentation? All right. This is the minority business update for 2020. And just to give you some background on this, they're certified minority businesses. So small or minority businesses must be certified with the South Carolina Division of Small and Minority Business Contracting and Certification. The acronym for that is SMBCC. The Sumter School District has a vendor application section to indicate if a vendor is a minority business, and then we code it accordingly in our accounting software. And then annually, we compare our vendor listing with the listing from SMBCC to see which businesses are certified, because we have found at times that we may have somebody checking the minority option in the vendor list, but they are not truly a certified vendor according to the state. So we run a comparison on that. And then there were some other questions about how we try to solicit business with minority business. So all bids are advertised in South Carolina Business Opportunities. And then during fiscal year 2020, we had 7 bids which were received for minority businesses. 4 were certified minority businesses, and 0 were awarded the bid based on the procurement procedures. And then $905,289 was spent with certified minority businesses during fiscal year 2020. 96% of those were women-owned businesses, which equated to approximately $870,000. And then 4% were African-American male businesses, which equated to approximately $32,000. And then for the projected fiscal year 2020 budgeted expenditures, which were approximately $125 million, 0.72% was spent with certified minority businesses. Are there any questions?
Ms. Miller,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Is there a breakdown, a racial breakdown among the women minority businesses?
I could probably gather some information on that. I don't believe I have it flagged which race those businesses are. I can tell you it's 2 businesses. So I should be able to gather that.
Two businesses, we spent $870,000 worth.
Yes, sir. One was a roofing company. One was a copier rental company.
And how many businesses did we spend $32,000 with, African-American male?
That's actually one business.
One business.
Yes, sir. Again, these are certified minority businesses. We certainly spend more money with other minority businesses, but they must be certified to be included in the procurement audit according to this calculation.
And do you have any idea how much we spent with others, minority, African-American male businesses?
No, sir, not off the top of my head.
Is that information available in this office?
We are trying to have it so the box is checked just for certified, so there could be more that are just not flagged that way. We would have to contact all our vendors and ask those questions.
When you say when we have to contact other vendors, would you explain that to me?
We would have to contact all our vendors, because the box does say certified minority business, and so they may not have checked it because they know the difference between certified and non-certified, and so they may not have checked the box, so the data that we currently have in our system may not be completely accurate for minority businesses that are not certified.
Would there be anyone in the building who would know whether they have done business with a minority businesses or not?
And we have thousands of vendors. I'm not sure.
Well, somebody needs to be sure about that. $32,000 a year is a shame in this kind of budget to be spent with African Americans.
Mr. Chair, I think with this presentation, it only speaks to fiscal year 20, so that will be the start of July 1. That's what we spent. Is that correct, Ms. Miller?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble, but I think the question is that this just relates to fiscal year 20, is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct. Those were just the figures from fiscal year 20. So just from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
Is there a way to look at maybe the previous years? Is that information readily available? I mean, maybe not for this presentation, but the next presentation or somewhere in the future?
We certainly can go back and look at that. We can also look at each of the prior year procurement audits because the percentage of business with certified minority businesses is disclosed in each of those annual reports.
And one last thing, is there a way to get a list of, I see under prong 3 on the certified minority businesses where it says we compare our vendors with the SMBCC listing of certified businesses. Is there a way to get a copy of that list that shows it like the breakdown between the racial and sexual differential between those businesses?
Yes, sir. It's on their website, and we can share that with you. I think there's approximately 600 certified minority businesses in South Carolina.
So for instance, the 800 and some thousand that are women-owned, a percentage of that could be African-American women. Do we know that?
Women of color, I guess.
I would have to contact the vendor.
Could be, but in most cases, they are the wives of men who own a similar roofing company.
Really?
I know.
stays in the family. But the women can apply as minority, but, because they are women.
But it
Not
doesn't, it
because of any kind
doesn't
of
say
ethnicity.
though what race they are,
No,
so we don't know that.
right, right.
But to your question, Reverend Canty, we can look into seeing if we can differentiate any deeper to see if there's additional data out there.
I think we need to be very conscious of that. These times demand that we look more closely at that.
Yes, sir.
And if you look at this report, it's still less than 1% of our total budget was spent with minorities. Less than 1%. I think it was 0.72, was it, or something like that?
The problem is we can't, because we have the same problem we had in the military, is, you can't make them appear, you know what I mean? I mean, they have to actually apply and be certified and bid.
Yeah.
So,
And win the bid.
And win the bid.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
And I also understand the criteria that's built in the system that makes it difficult for them to qualify. Yeah, so I understand all of that.
If I may, in addition to this certified minority businesses, I will be interested to see how much we spend locally in the county itself.
Yes, that's.
To see how much we invest back into our county, considering that we are the school district of the county, so I think that we should be making contributions back to the county.
That's a very good question. A very good question. Okay. All
And
right.
Chairman Canty, just to let you know, we have modified our vendor application report to have 2 boxes now, so that it will say minority business, and then there's another box for certified minority business. So going forward with new vendors, we will have that data where we should be able to run a report.
That'd be good. I think that'd be
Yeah.
good. That's good.
We've already made that change, but it's for future information. We would have to go back and try to gather that for current vendors.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Ms. Miller, thank you for your report. Appreciate it. Mhm. Item 5, closing of the meeting. If there's no objection, we'll adjourn this meeting. Once, twice, 3 times. Good night.
Vote.